and have for years. And they're really good friends of mine. So what I do is I check with these guys if I have heard something and did this really happen? Because you know in AA you hear a lot of stuff that really didn't happen. You know, some of the things that I hear coming out of people's mouths, you just sort of, I don't believe that. So I check it out. And here's something that I heard, and it's true. Bill Wilson called the 12 steps ego deflation at death. And that came from a doctor by the name of Harry Tebow. Have any of you read the Tebow papers? Well, let me tell you what he calls us. Dr. Harry Tebow had the insight of an alcoholic's ego better than anybody I have ever read in my entire life. But what he calls us are big babies. Right? The ego of the alcoholic has got to be demolished. And our ego will always rebuild. Always. And I don't care how long you're sober. So I'm a believer in going through the steps on a very regular basis. It used to be I'd go through every year. That's not the way it has been for some time now, but at least every year and a half to 2 years. Or if I'm taking anybody through the steps, which happens on a very regular basis, I go through the steps and fifth step with them also. But I am not a believer in fifth stepping with my sponsees all the time. Why? Because they're not going to tell me the truth all the time. Right? I don't need people that are going to lie to me. I need those people who have distanced themselves from me enough to tell me the truth. And God will always put those people in my life. He has always done that. You know the old adage, when the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear? It always has happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I go through the steps on a regular basis. And here's what we do. We list people who I'm resentful at. That's real easy, right? I am resentful at John Jones. Why? Because he fired me, right? But we also list principles. What's a principle? It's a belief system. A principle is a belief system. So what we write, we call it belief system inventory. What does this mean? Here's what I found out. I'm sober like 5 years, right? And one thing that you always know about sick alcoholics is they hate somebody. There's always anger someplace, right? That's me. Always angry. So Frank says to me, he goes, have you ever noticed that you wrote on so-and-so and then so-and-so and then so-and-so, but it's all the same thing? You're pissed off at all these people, but it's all the same thing. He said, maybe we need to get down to your belief system. How do we get down to your belief systems? Write on principles. Principle inventory is really simple, guys. What is a man supposed to be? Right? What is a woman supposed to be? What is a man my age supposed to be? I'm in this position today. A man my age should have enough money to buy a house on the ocean or something. You know, maybe I have that kind of a thought that's going on. These are belief system inventories. This is how people are supposed to act. This is how I'm supposed to act. This is how my wife is supposed to act. And then we list that person or that belief system, and then under cause, we list, where did I get this belief from? Isn't that cool? And I really got to look at this. Where did I get this belief system from? And then I take it down through the columns. The third column is, how does this affect my self-esteem? What is self-esteem? Who do I think I am? That's my self-esteem. What role am I playing? I brought a little thing of the questions that we ask in my group when you write inventory, if somebody wants to take it and put it on your website or whatever you do with it. But we ask, how does this affect my self-esteem? Who do I think I am in this situation? Well, one of the things I think I am half the time is right. Ask Anna. Thomas knows it. I think I'm right. You know, or I'm the best this, or I'm the best that. I've been a realtor for 45 years, you know. One of my resentments is people that say, oh, I wouldn't use anybody but you, and then all of a sudden they go buy a house with somebody. Right? And I'm sitting there, and first thing that happens is, this is how much money I lost. Well, I never lost it because it was never mine. But at the same time, I have this belief system that if you tell me you're going to do something with me, you do it. Right? And I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a believer that honesty is do what I say I'm going to do. Big, big believer in that. But here's the thing. We have self-esteem. How does it affect my personal relations? So we have personal relations 1 and personal relations 2. 1, how does it affect my personal relations with the person I'm angry with? Right? I'm pissed off at Eric because he said he was going to buy a house for me, and then he goes and he buys a multi-million-dollar mansion with somebody else, right? Yeah, that's the kind of guy he is, right? Personal relations 1, how does that affect my relations with Eric? Well, I stopped talking to that asshole, right? But here's personal relations 2, and I think you need to look at it. How does this resentment affect the other people around me? My wife? Maybe my wife and his wife are friends. I don't know. Or maybe I gossip to Thomas about what an asshole he is, right? I have to take responsibility for this. That's what personal relations is. Right? Sex relations. If there is sexual relations there, I ask the same questions. So I've had a write on, I'm sure this is a surprise to all of you, but I've had a write on a few women I dated. You know? So how does this resentment affect my sexual relations with her? Right? Then ambition is always, what did I want out of the show? What was I looking for here? Security. I am a believer, 100% believer that all drunks live to feel secure. Now, listen to what I just said. Feel secure, not be secure. Here's what I mean. Back when I was drinking, had to be in court at 8 o'clock some morning, and I was scared to death because I was facing jail time. And this buddy of mine brought over a fifth of Jack Daniels and a case of beer the night before. And I went from being a scared little kid facing jail time, an hour later, everything in my life is fucking wonderful. What happened? What did alcohol do? Made me feel secure, right? I don't think that changes when we get sober. Why do you think that so many alcoholics are control freaks? Because they've got to arrange life to suit themselves, right? So I believe that alcoholics live to try to feel secure. And so under security, I write down, what is it I need to be secure? And then, of course, pocketbook, what do I need, or how does this affect my pocketbook? Whatever this resentment may be. Well, he stole, $20,000 commission from me or something. See, and I'm blaming him. Where's the responsibility here? Me, not him, right? I just love Alcoholics Anonymous because, see, I know the backstories, right? I love hearing these people talk all this spiritual shit, and then you go on Facebook and you go, oh, Trump's this, Trump's that, and these libs this and these libs that, and everybody's trying to make a point. No. All I have to figure out is if I have resentment in that arena, just like any other arena, I gotta look at me. Not you, not what's going on here. So that's what we do. We write that out. Then we write the fourth column. The fourth column is, the first question that I ask in the fourth column is this resentment true? The big book talks about it like this: is the resentment fancied or real? Right? It has the power to kill. So the first thing I ask in the resentment is this real? Did it really happen? You know? And so much of the time, it never happened. It's a story I made up in my head. This is what fear does to me. Here's how fear takes my life over. I'll be going along and my life is great, right? All bills are paid. My wife loves me today. No financial insecurity whatsoever. Everything's going along just fantastic. And all of a sudden, I'll catch a fear. Then the fear takes over the fear, and it starts to snowball. And pretty soon, I'm way over here, and I'm making decisions based on reality. Right? So I have to look at, is it true? Then I look at, where am I being selfish? Selfish is, I have it, you can't have it. I've always thought selfish was something else. But I like it. I like that definition of selfish. I have it, you can't have it. So what does this mean with Eric? He didn't buy a house for me, so I ain't talking to this guy. What am I really doing? I'm withdrawing my relationship with him. I'm withdrawing everything from him, right? Isn't that selfish? Horribly selfish. What is self-seeking? Self-seeking is, you have it, I want it. That's what we write under self-seeking in the fourth column. Dishonest, that's pretty simple to see. Where am I being dishonest? So much of the time my dishonesty is blaming you and being a victim. And again, I've always said, I hear this in AA all the time, is I hear people, sober a long time ago, I just didn't go for that job. Why not? Because I just don't think I'm good enough. What you're doing is you're not willing to take responsibility. Maybe you're not good enough. I mean, sometimes the reality of life just, I would love to be a linebacker for the Denver Broncos. I don't think they look at 79-year-old guys lately. My wife and I are always joking about that, right? I mean, sometimes it's just it's totally unrealistic, but to sit there and to make up my mind to not try to do something because I'm not good enough is a con job. It's a lie. And I don't want to live my life on lies. I'm going to tell you something. If this God is really all-powerful, He's going to give you whatever it is you may need, if that's where He wants you to go. So that's the fourth step. And then we write on institutions, we write on fear. And the way I write fear inventory is 3 columns, same way, or start with one fear and then follow it down the pipe. Right? In other words, I'm afraid of losing my job. Then I'm afraid my wife is going to leave me because I'm not bringing in money. Then I'm afraid I'm going to lose my FICO score or whatever it may be. Right? And I follow the fear all the way down, and then I ask the question, how is self-reliance failing? Now, do I trust in God or do I not trust in God? I'm going to tell you right now, guys, the hardest thing to do about trusting in God is trusting in God. By far. I remember laying there when I had my back fusion a few years ago, and I'm laying there, and I'm about ready to be rolled in. And usually I'm a big believer in living in the here and now. I'm a huge believer in that. That the only place God is here, right now. Because if you think about it, you're all fine right here, right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember laying there going, God, I don't like the here and now. But I got through it. I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I should bring this up now or bring it up. I'll just bring it up because it's It's here. You can go through anything. That little girl that I told you I didn't want her to have a drunk for a father, she ended up coming into Alcoholics Anonymous at 19 years old and spent 9.5 years, and her and I were best friends. And she ended up going back out. This is the little girl I raised. I was a single father. And I got the call at 8 o'clock in the morning that she had died from an overdose. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this up is not, I don't want any sympathy from anybody. I really don't. Because I'm a firm believer that she's where she needs to be today. But here's what I'm going to tell you. This idea of how the media portrays alcoholics, I lost the little girl that I raised, and I never one time thought about taking a drink. Did I get mad? Hell yes. Did I get mad at myself? Did I doubt myself? Did I beat myself up? You name it, I did it. But not one time did I ever think about taking a drink. And that's why I can stand in front of you and say from 6 months, when God removed my drink obsession, I have not one time thought about taking a drink. Drinking is just not an issue. And it says drinking is just the beginning, doesn't it? Recovery is where this deal is at. This is about transforming your life. So I have done 4 steps. I've done multiple 5th steps. I had a sponsor for a long time, this guy named Paul Martin from Chicago. And Paul believed, Paul's group, it was great. Paul's group did a step a week. And as you went through with Paul, okay, you did what the group did. So every 12 weeks you're writing inventory. Every 12 weeks you're doing a 5th step. Right? And when you 5th step, you don't 5th step with your sponsor. You 5th step with 10 to 15 guys from your group. That's what Paul had you do. So I was, at that time, I was 20-some years sober, and my sponsor, my old sponsor, Gary Brown, had used Paul Martin as a sponsor. And my life was falling apart. I had blown up my life at about 24, 25 years of sobriety. And real estate was in the tank, and I wasn't making money, and my sex life was far beyond horrible. And a lot of things were going on, and I didn't feel any connection to God nor AA. For some reason, at 20-some years of sobriety, I wasn't able to see the gift. And I remember calling Paul, and I said, would you sponsor me? He says, yeah, I'll sponsor you if you'll do the steps the way I want you to, and then fly out here and do your 5th step. And I had to fly out to Chicago, and when I went into his office, there was like 5 guys sitting there, right? And I had a 5th step with all these people. And these people are telling me the truth. I was lying. I was spending money I didn't have. I was in debt. I was this. I was that. My word had gotten to the point where it didn't mean everything I said I would do, I wouldn't do. I could see how my ego had just taken me into a different place. And I was really setting myself up for a drunk. I really was. And you see, there's another line in the book that's huge, and that says that the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead of you, right? Do you believe that to be true? That's a huge question. You know, and I had lost that. You know, you're going to learn more from my mistakes than you're going to learn from my successes, but what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to questions, and then tomorrow at 9 a.m., they got to have me here early, right? We're going to go through the rest of those steps, but I really want to spend some time on 10, 11, and 12. And what I really want to talk about is living in the present, and what does the 10th step really say? You know, I'd be interested to hear what you think the 10th step says, then I'm going to tell you what I think the 10th step says. And guess who's right? May not be me, trust me. One thing sobriety will teach you is to open your mind up. You got to open your mind up. I'll start thinking some stupid shit, and it just starts taking me down. You know, it just distracts me from the entire world. And my whole job is to live in the present and accept the world as it comes to me. Because God will give me everything I need to get through this day, no matter what that may be. And I really want to thank you guys for inviting me here. I'm winding this speaking stuff down. I've been doing it for a lot of years. And you know, I'm at the age where I don't like to fly much anymore. And I also wonder sometimes, am I still making sense? I hope I am. Honestly, I really do. I think we all doubt that at times, you know. And I just really, really, really appreciate you guys asking me out here. So, any questions?
Yeah. First and foremost, thank you so much for sharing with us today. You were kind of reading through for me. I was trying to take as many notes as possible for the 4-step inventory. My first part is on the institutions. What about them? Right? You kind of just breezed right by it. You didn't necessarily go in depth as you did like fear or sex.
Sure. Institutions are, for me, I do the same thing. Like I'll tell you something I really do resent is customer service.
Institution.
I hate these people. Right? But institutions, the IRS, I had to write a lot on them because I had a lot of tax trouble at one point in time. Got through that. God got me through that. Institutions are credit card companies, computer companies, Xfinity. We have that. Churches are definitely institutions. And I've also written on the institution of marriage. Okay?
Does that come down to your belief system?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
who put that in your mind? Why do you believe this way?
Exactly. You know, I'm going to tell you something. Here's something I really learned. Remember we talked about, don't you just want to be who you are and like yourself? It doesn't mean I have to live life the way you think I'm supposed to. I sponsored a guy. I don't know if I should. Yeah, I can bring it up here. No, I'm serious. I used to speak at a lot of conventions, and there's certain things you just don't bring up. But I did. I sponsored a guy, and him and his wife were swingers. And they every Saturday night they went to a sex club and had sex with all these people, and part of me was jealous, right? You know, and he even said, if you want to come along, I was good looking at one point. And, but the thing is I can't judge him. I'm going to give you guys something that really helped me. AA only has one morality. Does it work? That's the only morality AA has. Where does AA judge your sexual situation? Doesn't it? Where does it judge anything about you? It doesn't. It says, if your drinking's working, then don't come here, right? If your life's working, what are you doing here? Right? If it works, it's moral. If it doesn't work, it's immoral. Paul Martin, that guy laid that one on me, right? So the thing that I had to get down to in sobriety is, what can I live? Me. What am I okay with, right? Because other people can stay sober and do what they got to do, and I may not agree with it, but I don't have to judge it. And I don't judge you. See, I think you guys being here today means you want to enlarge your spiritual condition, right? Mm-hmm. I think that. So I love coming here and sharing my spiritual path in hopes that you grab something and go, hey man, that might work for me, right? You know, but anyway, I'm sorry to go on and on.
No worries. My second part of my question was, you were going into fear. The book talks about 1,000 forms of fear, right? And so in that fear column is, you were saying, how has self-reliance confused me?
Failed me.
Failed me. Okay.
Yeah, well, what are the things I did personally to try to overcome the fear? Right? That kind of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You said the best years of my life lie ahead. Did that come at 6 months?
No. No, and I'm very glad you said that, because I'm going to tell you right now, the first 3 years of my sobriety was a hellhole. It was horrible. And there was a guy, his name was Gene Lamb. He wrote westerns for some kind of movie company or something. And Gene said to me, he'd been sober since, Dr. Bob was his sponsor. And he had been sober a long time. And he said to me, he said, you know, you had been building up a momentum, Mike, when you were drinking. And when you came into AA, that momentum keeps going. And sooner or later, the steps are going to turn you around, but it sure as hell isn't going to feel good. See, there's a thing about progressive sobriety will result in good happiness. It really will. And I say that, I know it's not, my vocabulary isn't too good, but progressive happiness. It really works. Just like if you stay out there drinking, what's going to happen? Progressively worse. This stuff will not fail you. Trust me. So anyway, to answer your question, my first 3 years were absolute hell. I had child support, I had debts, I had an ex-wife that hated me, I had, you name it, I had. So no, that didn't come for quite some time for me. Yeah. Somebody else?
Just, I don't know if it's about the steps, but you were talking about trouble in sobriety, long-term sobriety. Sharing that stuff in a meeting, I know the big book, the closest it comes to talking about that, sharing in a general way. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you get like a 3 to 5 minute share. There's not much you can, say when you're going through it.
You mean, what should I say? Or?
Yeah, what should I, or how do I say it?
I find somebody to go through the steps with, somebody that's got the answer,
Right.
and they just put it right in my path. Because I have to go back through the work on a regular basis, or my ego's going to get me out here to where I'm not living in reality. Yeah. I don't bring stuff up in meetings. I'm not a big proponent of bringing up my depression or my sex life or something in a meeting. But I will with my sponsor, or the person I'm going through the steps with. Yeah.
Thank you for your share. I understand doing a 4th step from time to time, once, twice a year. But if the purpose of the 12 steps is to have a spiritual awakening, I heard you say you did the steps over every year. What happened between you and God that you felt necessary to do your steps over?
That's a very interesting question, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes nothing happened between me and God. The reason that I do it, here's why I do it. I don't do it every year anymore. It's about once every 2 years. But here's why I do it. I was involved. Remember I told you I was involved in a group that went through the steps every year? They started on the same date. The entire group, all 60, started on the same date. And everybody did the steps. And so there was a couple of years where I thought, God, my life is great. I am the spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. What do I need to go back through the steps for? And I went through the steps with him. And I'm sitting in the middle of the 5th step. This happened one time. And I found out I was lying with a girl I was dating. I had a girlfriend. I was doing this. I was doing that. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I am messed up. See, I thought my life was this way. When it wasn't. It was this way. And that's what I started to see the power of the steps were all about. Was to get me to the truth. And to see the lie. And I also had it the other way. Where I thought, I am screwed. God has decided to really just throw me away, right? I couldn't see God, I couldn't feel. This happened after my daughter passed away. I was sober a long time. And I remember laying on my floor in my living room crying, God, how could you take her from me? Right? And I went, and 6 months later, I went and I did an inventory with a guy who I sponsored who's 30 years sober, so I had no problem fist-stepping with him. And he looked at me and he goes, God has you in his hand. Don't you see that? See, I didn't know that. So that's the reason I do that. Is I'm not the best judge of how I'm doing. The idea that I'm the best judge. Yeah, with sobriety comes clarity. It does. Absolutely, without a doubt. But sometimes I think I'm this way when I'm really over here. Anybody else?
So kind of
This
a
asshole stole money from me.
I haven't even got invited to the house.
as far as the first step is concerned, I know you said that the AA of today is not the AA of 30, 40 years ago, and I've heard a lot of people have the opinion that in chapter 3 it says that we suggest that the alcoholic go drink, that they go to the nearest bar, that they try it more than once. Mm-hmm. I've heard people say that, these days if we tell someone that we might be putting them to their death sentence, with fentanyl out there and things like that. The question's kind of a two-parter because do you think that that is still appropriate in this day and age? And how does one work on the first step? Are you in the camp that has people list all the terrible things that they've done to everyone, or like how they're unmanageable in their life?
No.
Or are you of the camp that just says, if you want what we have, join us,
No.
but if not, go and
I'm not in
drink?
either camp. Do you mind if I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the camp of how did you drink? See, that's how they got me to my first step, is tell me when you didn't want to go get drunk and you went out and got drunk anyway, what really happened? See, that's the stuff. Today's Alcoholics Anonymous, I tell the same. There's two things the big book says to do to find out if you're alcoholic. One is to go test it, right, by drinking. A lot of people have heard about the Marty Mann test, right? Yeah. Well, I knew Marty Mann. Yeah, isn't that sort of cool? I met her one time. It's like I met Tom Selleck one time too. I'm sure he doesn't have me in his phone. But I met Marty Mann one time. And Marty Mann, that test is 2 drinks a day every day, no more, no less, right? And see if you can do it. So if there's a camp that says if you try that test to see if you're alcoholic, that we're doing like putting your life at risk, well, I think being an alcoholic is putting your life at risk. So I suggest that all the time anyway. The other way the big book handles it is don't take a drink for a year. Just don't drink for a year. And if you can do that, you're probably not alcoholic. But my thing is, and please forgive me if, I know a lot of you went to NA and you got to AA and that kind of thing. That's great. I want to see everybody recover. I really do. Right? Never mind that. I can't say that.
Come on, Mike. Come on.
It was something somebody said to me once. Anyway, I believe in the old approach. And that is, I have a solution for an alcoholic. And if I don't think you're alcoholic, I don't have a solution for you. And I'm not going to work with you. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I know people in CA who work a phenomenal program. I'll take you over there. I'll take you to NA. Except I don't know too many people there that work a real good program. But I spoke in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago, and they had an Al-Anon speaker who just really, the alcoholic is the whole problem. And I got up there and I was talking about it, and I said, I haven't met an Al-Anon yet that wants to see an alcoholic have a good time. You've heard that joke, right? Yeah. Why doesn't an Al-Anon lady open her eyes during sex? She doesn't want to see the alcoholic have a good time. It's a good thing I'm winding down my speaking. Any other questions? And we can pick this back up tomorrow. Anybody else?
One more.
Yeah. Where?
Over there.
Yeah.
You said from the third step prayer until you finish the seventh, this consistent prayer. You should be in prayer.
I believe we are in prayer.
So what does that actually look like as you're doing those steps?
What is the very first thing you've been taught to do when you write inventory?
Set aside in prayer.
Huh?
Set aside in prayer.
Set aside prayer is great. But I was taught the first thing I do at the top of every single page of inventory is write a prayer. God help me. God help me see the truth. So I believe that we are in prayer from step 3 through step 7. How does it look? It looks different to everybody. That'd be like you and me saying, let's go out and run a mile. It's going to feel a certain way to you, and I can't do it. So, you're young, you should be able to. Yeah.
Sorry, lifters don't run.
I ain't running. Anybody else? Yeah.
You said you had a 4-step sheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one here. If somebody wants to take pictures of it,
do
you're
that.
more than happy to
You can do that.
take a look at it. Yeah, I brought it with me. They wanted me to bring pamphlets and entertain you guys, but I'm not willing to do that. So, yeah.
You're talking about powerlessness over alcohol. There's like powerlessness over life and a bunch of different things.
Uh-huh.
How about, say, you're powerless over a friend, right? Or someone who's on a very, very destructive path that same problem, alcoholism and alcohol use, and then jails and getting out and in the cycle, and they know they have a problem, they know what the problem is, they don't want the solution, they don't want to do the work. Like, if you have a friend like that, which I do, what would be like a very practical advice? I guess I can't change what that person's doing, but what I can is change my outlook maybe on the situation.
Well, you're talking about my daughter. She was sober for 9.5 years. She got her nursing license. She got her felony expunged. She got, she met a guy, a great guy. And then she goes back out. And I watched that happen for 12 years. Right down to when she wouldn't talk to me and all these promises. I'll be there Thanksgiving dinner and never show up. What we do, right? Well, I can't change her. If there's any one thing that I can tell you is I can't change her and I can't change you. One of the best things my sponsor said to me was, I can't care more about your sobriety than you do. I just can't do it. So, I just got to sometimes cut people loose for my own sanity. But if I'm having a problem with what you're doing, then I got to look at me. Right? Anything else? Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.